Hello and welcome to this YouTube video on what's in my special effects kit. This is me, Megan, part of the team, and I'm just going to go through what I would have just in my SFX kit, not including any other makeup for anything else. So here are just the list of the different categories that I've organised everything into, just so it's a bit easier to follow along, and also if you see something you like, you can know whereabouts in the video to find it. First off, we're using main materials, which are things that I can obviously craft things with. First, I've got parts A and part B of silicone, which I can use to make moulds and different kinds of wounds, burns, or parts of characters, which is really good within special effects. You can make them as big as or small as you want, and you can also colour them to blend in with the skin, or when you mould things it's easier. This is where you mix part A and part B, which is the two different bottles, and it creates a paste that you will then mould. Next here is Deadener, which you can mix into the silicone, which would make it a bit more flexible and skin-like. So the more you add in, the more flexible and thin it would be, which is perfect for small wounds and skin. Next we have Pro Key, which is a water-based adhesive, which will help you stick down the prosthetics or anything else. I prefer this just because a lot of people prefer it on their skin as it's easier to take off, but it's just as effective as other products. Next I have Super Calc, which is an alcohol-based material, and it is applied for bald caps or other things like that, and you get rid of it with alcohol, so it helps blend in with the skin, just so you can't see where the ball cap starts and the skin starts. It helps everything just blend into one, which is a really good product. Next is Artex, which is kind of like a mini version of the silicone A and B. This is really good if you're going on set and if you just need something small that you can take with you, because obviously the big bottles can be a bit more, lugging around and heavier, so this is just a really good compromise for that. Next here I have some clay, which is what I tend to mould my prosthetics with or anything else regarding special effects. I keep it in this Tupperware box just so it doesn't get dirty and it all just stays in one place. This is old and new clay, and if I ever want to clean it, I will just melt it down to a liquid and then fish out all the dirt, and then it's just brand new. So it's a really, really long lasting clay, and it's also a wax based one. Next here I have gelatine, which is good for burns and stuff. You mix it with a few different things, which we will go into in just a sec, which involves glycerin. This helps with burns and anything that you want to make look melted, like if you're doing something with candles or anything like that. It's really good at replicating that. Next, as I just said, here's the glycerin, which is something you'd mix with the gelatine, and it is really, really helpful for creating those burns. And they're both just really cheap, affordable products to use, and also very light and small to carry around with you whenever you have your kit on you. Next, we're going into paints and makeup, which is just all the products that I would use and personally have on me, mostly just because they're small and easy to move around and take with you everywhere, as well as really useful. One of my favourite things within my kit is the alcohol-based palettes. They are so diverse and you can get so many different ones. These two are just the two that I really personally like using, and the ones I mainly use. I do have a few others, but I only use them on very rare occasions because these palettes just have all the colours you would need. Here, the first one is the lighter flesh tones. It is got the obviously lighter flesh tones, and it's got things like blues for veins and red for blemishes. It's also got some greens in them, some yellows to make some really uneven zombie textured skin. The next one here is the flesh tones number 2, and this one is a smaller palette. It's just from a mini palette series, and it is really, really good to just be carrying around. It's got some really good colours in it, and it's really pigmented when mixed with the alcohol, which is something that I really personally like. Next we have the Dermacolor Camouflage Mini Palette. These are really, really strong concealers. They're really good for concealing anything on the skin, but I personally really like them for tattoos because they are so thick but also light that they are just so good coverage for anything like that. So if you're on set and you need to cover someone's tattoo, These are really, really good, and they come in multiple different shades and tones, which I really, really like. Next, I have the cream colour circle, which are all like a bruise colour wheel. These are really, really good colours, just because you can mix them about, and they're really good with other foundations and cream-based products. This one is the main one I use. Again, I do have a few others, but I only use 1 or 2 colours from them at most, whereas this, I use all the colours. They are all so diverse and really well used. This is probably my 3rd one by now. I just go through them, but they are such a good staple to have in your kit. Next, I have the TV paint stick. This comes in many different colours, but the TV white one is one of the best. It is like an off-white colour, but once you go under lights for like a camera or a shoot or anything like that, it is a perfect white tone. This is really good for clown makeup or anything around those lines. Good for theatre makeup as well. So again, another really good staple. One of the other things I have is a lip and eye pencil. I also have these in a neutral or a white tone, just because I find that the white one works better on people with deeper skin tones, and the nude one's better for people that are a bit more fair. You don't want anything too dark or too in your face, just because this is just to help mark out places, like if you had a prosthetic, mark out where it would go, just so you can map out where you're going to be doing things on someone's face or body. Next is something that pretty much every makeup artist has in their kit, but I have one especially for my SFX kit, which is setting powder. This is good for setting any makeup you've done or any prosthetics. It's really, really good just to have in the kit, ready for anything, just to make sure everything stays and sets where you want it to be. Next, we have bloods. I felt like this was a really small category, but it's also something that is really important as a special effects kit, because you can get loads of different variations, and I might even do a video later on the different kinds of bloods and maybe how to make your own, because that is something that is really vital within the SFX kits. So the first I have here is my absolute favourite product probably in my whole kit, which is Fresh Scab, or better known as Scab Blood. It's really, really good. I got the colour dark just because it's so diverse. I use it in pretty much most things I do, and it lasts so long, even though it's such a small pot. It's also really affordable if you're just starting out. You can also water this down with a bit of a thinner blood, and you can make your own texture and thickness of it, which I find is really, really good, and is, as I said, a bit more of an affordable way to get different kinds of blood with just 1 or 2 products. The next one is the SFX blood in the same colour dark. This is normally the one I would mix with the Fresh Scab, just because it is really, really good, and they've got the same kind of ingredients, which means they really mix well together, and I can get that kind of texture or thickness that I want. The next one here I have is Vampire Blood. It's just a big bottle of fake blood, just if you need loads on clothes. If you're normally working on set, you'll need to put the makeup within, everything else like clothes and hair and stuff, and this one's really, really good for that. It's easily washed off, but it also really stays well on the skin. And then, as I said, it can be mixed with other things, and it's really, really affordable, and you get quite a lot in the bottle as well. The next one is something that I don't think a lot of people use, but personally I've been on a lot of sets where people have used them or asked for them, and I haven't had them on me, so I've really invested in them. They're little blood capsules. You put them in your mouth and you just squeeze on them, and they burst, and then it's blood that is safe for the mouth. So, as I said, any of the other bloods above would not be safe to go anywhere inside the body, like the mouth or the eyes or anything like this. This is still not safe for the eyes, but if it does get in your eye, it can be a little bit uncomfortable, but it is still very much better off than the others, as they would be painful, whereas these are very body safe. And as I said, a lot of people do ask for these, and so it is a really good thing to go out and get, just because if you do have them, you will stand out a bit with how flexible you are and everything else, and it does make things look really, really good. If you're doing like a zombie look or something and they've got them, it just adds to the whole character. Next, I'm going on to brushes and tools. This is one that has a few different random things in, but all together they are things that you probably wouldn't think of, but are really, really good and can be really used well. The first one is a brush holder. I've got one that goes around my waist just so I can have my brushes and tools on me at all times when I'm running around, because normally on a set you are running around and you look a bit crazy. So it's nice to have something on you all the time. So if someone wants something topped up, you've got a brush on you, which is really, really good. I've got two sides to it. Normally I have my tools on one side and my brushes on the other, or I have clean brushes on one side and dirty brushes on the other, just depending on the different kind of set I'm on and what I would be doing, just so then I know which ones are clean, which ones are dirty, and so I'm not cross-contaminating anything. The next one is a mixture of old brushes. Now this one's really, really good. Any old makeup brushes that are a few years old but are still clean, I use for my special effects, because they're not that great for normal beauty makeup, but they'd be really good for special effects because they're a bit more, bit more old and vintage, let's say. And there's no need to get rid of them because they are more uneven and they're really good for that, textured skin or anything. This is also including just different paintbrushes over the years, little thin ones, thick ones, fluffy ones, flat ones, any ones will do. Trust me, you'll find ways of using these within special effects. The next one is thick paintbrushes. These are ones that you can just get online or in a, B&Q kind of shop. And they're really, really good just to really throw paint on the body quick, as sometimes you are on a time limit. But also they're really, really good for, when you're doing your clay work and stuff, to create that texture, to get that skin-like tone for your prosthetics. The next thing is a toothbrush. This is really, really good for adding texture in the clay for your prosthetics, but also really good for creating blood splatters by getting the bristles in between your fingers and brushing them through whilst they've got blood on. You can do that on the face and the body with any kind of runny blood, and that's really good for creating that splatter. The next one is a stipple brush. I've only got the black one here. I can't find the orange one that I do have. But this one is really, really harsh and coarse, which is good for creating a more harsh and defined texture. Any kind of sponge will do, which I will go on a little bit later on as well. But this sponge is really good for kind of paints and body art as well, like body paints. Normally cream or water-based ones are really, really good for this as well. So it's got multi-uses and it's another staple within my kit. The next thing is a powder brush. This one's just a really old one, like I said, from just a few years ago. It used to be my powder brush, but now it's just a more harsh. This is still good for powdering prosthetics and powdering your work with the powder that I mentioned before. The next is wooden popsicle sticks. These are really good for mixing up the mixture with the silicone or deadener, or if you're just mixing up paints. It's multi-used. It can be used for anything, and especially when you've got things that are hot like gelatin that you have to put in the microwave. This is really good just so you don't burn yourself, and they're one use as well. But overall really, really good just to have handy, and if you just need to chuck away, if you don't have time to clean something, you can just mix them and then throw them out. The next ones is the different clay tools. I've only got a few here that I really, really use. I've got loads, but as I said, there's only a few that I would take with me to places, because these are just the ones that create most of the textures, or that I use most of clay due to the other things I have, like the sponges and toothbrushes and all of that. The next is spoolies. These are kind of like the toothbrush. The different uses that I have with those, this is kind of the same thing but more fine. So if I'm going near the eye, I want to be a bit more delicate, I would use this instead of the toothbrush, just because the toothbrush is a bit bigger and a bit harder to control. So if you are starting out, I would recommend this, but the toothbrush is really good to move on to for bigger areas. Next is dental tools. These are really good for, with the clay and creating shape and texture, mainly shape and carving out where, your prosthetic or anything like that. This is the main one I use. I do have a whole set, but this is the only one I really use from that set. It is so good because it's double-ended, and like I said, it's just once you find a few tools that you really, really like, you'll find that you'll only use them small amount of tools. Even though you have loads of them everywhere, you will only use a selective few that you really get on with. It is just personal preference, so I do recommend just buying a set like I did, because it is going to be cheaper in the long run as well. They're really, really good and really sturdy, which is good with clay. The next is a nail art tool. Again, I bought a pack, but they're all the exact same, just in different colours, so I just got one. But this is really, really good just for making little dents and creating those little dents within the skin texture, like pores. This is really, really good to use within the clay or anything else. If you're doing like a burn and you just want to poke it a little bit, but you don't want to hurt the model with anything sharp like a dental tool, this is really, really handy for that. The next one is tweezers. I've got these metal ones that are really, really good just for picking at things. Really good for clay and prosthetics. It's also good for just picking things up and placing them down. If you don't want to use your fingers, personally, I like to use my fingers when I'm working on someone's face, just because the warmth from your fingers really helps makeup most of the time. But if you are one of those people that do prefer using different tools, I would really recommend tweezers, just because it is something that you're probably familiar with anyway, and so you will know how to handle it and use it, which is a good start within your kit. Next is just a group of miscellaneous things. These are things that don't really fit into any of the main categories, but they are still very vital and things that you need in your kit. The first is flocking. Personally, I really, really enjoy using flocking because it can really help visually with what you're doing with your prosthetic. So when you use the silicone and you're making the actual kind of bed or bowl, as you would say, you would use the flocking to dye, which is this forest green one I've got. But you could also get skin toned ones, which is really, really good for the actual prosthetic itself, just so you can see the difference between the two silicones, as if they're both just white, it will be very hard for you to see how thin you're getting it or if it's exactly how you like. Just having one colour can go a really long way, especially if you're starting out and you don't really know what you're looking for. This is just so helpful to really see the difference between the two. The next is IPA. This is good for multiple reasons: for the alcohol-based palettes, for cleaning your brushes, for just multiple things. Normally with the alcohol-based palettes, you will get a little mini one, which is one you see here, but I also have a spray bottle one, which I use most of the time anyway, but you always get that little one anyway, so you might as well keep it and use it for other things. The next thing is a skin safe remover. This is really good for prosthetics and adhesive you put on there. Some removers are very harsh on the skin. This one I use personally is really, really good for very sensitive skin. I don't really have sensitive skin, but I've worked with people that do, and this is very nice and soft on the skin, as some can be quite harsh and can leave rashes, which is something you don't want to walk away from when you've done that to a model. So I do really recommend this one, but there are also loads out of there as well. The next is Vaseline. I normally apply this to wherever I'm applying a prosthetic or any latex or gelatin or anything, just to create that barrier, so that it doesn't stick to all the little baby hairs and stuff and they're protected. The same with any eyebrows or where your hairline is, or any hairs on the arms and the face, anywhere. It's just really good. And when you remove the makeup later on and the prosthetics, it's so much easy going for the remover and also for your client, because you don't want to be ripping it off and hurting them. Even with the remover, sometimes you can catch an odd hair. This just really helps prevent that. It's not going to do it 100%, but it's the best thing I've personally used to do that. And it's cheap as well, so it's very affordable and it's just a really good staple within your kit. The next one is moisturiser. I tend to moisturise my clients' face or body, wherever they're going to have makeup, just to kind of help the skin look as good as it can, but also feel as best as it can for you and the client, because they don't want to have dry skin. Because if you have dry skin or oily skin or anything and you've just put paint on it, it will show and your work will not look great and the client won't feel great. I use a very good one, which is just very sensitive to the skin. It's just a little tub. With the little wooden popsicle sticks, I take some out just so I'm not contaminating anything. And again, you can get any kind of one, whichever you prefer. Personally, I just really like this one. It's cheap, it's affordable, but it's really effective. and it's one that most people have really used before anyway. So the next one is wipes. I've just got makeup wipes because people want to wipe off their makeup. Sometimes they prefer wipes. They're quick, they're easy. Instead of carrying around cotton pads and then remover and all these other things, it's just easy to have it all in one. And also you'd need wipes anyway, just baby wipes, from, you know, things like the prosthetics or anything like that. So just to have two in one is just so much easier and better off when you're carrying everything around, because you're not going to want to carry anything really heavy, and the less things you can carry the better. So multi-purpose things are the best way to go, but you want to make sure they're good and that you're not missing out on anything. The next is gloves. These are powderless latex-free gloves, in the colour blue. You can get any kind of one. You can get different colours like white or black or anything like that. I just have these left over from when I bought them, but just make sure they're powderless or latex-free, because if you're working on someone who's allergic to latex, even though you're not using any latex and using silicone or gelatin, if you've got latex gloves, that will still affect them. So it's just better to be safe than sorry. But yeah, these are just small, but you can get any size depending on, you know, yourself and what would fit you. The next is hair gel. This is really good just for slicking back someone's hair if you're placing a bald cap on, or, you know, anything like that. It's also really good to create a wound that looks wet. Another thing to use is lube, just a clear unscented lube. Just if you're doing a burn, then they normally look wet and, you know, fresh. These two things are really, really good, but I personally just have the hair gel because you can use it for the hair, whereas the lube, you know, someone probably wouldn't feel great with you putting lube on their hair, so hair gel is probably the best way to go. But just, it's trial and error. It's whatever you try and prefer using. Next is measuring cups. These are good for just silicone, deadener, gelatin, all those kind of things, just to make sure that you've measured them out properly. And they've got all the different things on the side, just so you can see how much product you are using, which is really, really handy. The next is some cardboard. I've got this just because if you're doing anything like making a prosthetic, you can have like an acrylic plate, but cardboard is just easier to throw away. And most of the time things can stick to it and it's hard to clean. So just for practical reasons, I do like having cardboard. The next thing is a towel, which I have in my kit all the time just to place brushes on, or my kit, or, you know, if someone gets something in their eye or anything, they've got a towel. If they don't want to get anything in their eye, they can just place it over their eyes whilst I'm doing makeup, just to prevent that. It's just multi-use again, like I said, and it's really, really good. This is just a hand soft towel. Next to honourable mentions, these are things that aren't things that I would always take with me, but things that I would really recommend looking into if you are going into the special effects area of this industry, just because they will help you in the long run, even if you're not carrying on them, even when you're doing things at home or in a studio. These can really benefit you later on. The first is a face cast. It is a bit of a pain to make, but if you're doing a lot of things on yourself, or if you've got a client that you normally use a lot, make a face cast, because then it's identical to their face and you can make things that will fit them perfectly. You could also get like one of them ones you get in like Hobbycraft or somewhere like that, just one of them fake heads, but this is more accurate, so I would recommend going through and doing that. The next thing is a sketch pad and paper. If you come from an art background and you can draw, if you're trying to describe something to someone and they're not really understanding what you're envisioning, you can always do a quick sketch and show them like this will go here or that will be like that. It's just really, really good if you do have that skill of drawing. You might as well show it and use it to your advantage. Sometimes people don't really see how something would lay on the face, so I just quickly draw out a face roughly and then draw how it would be. And it's just better for communication purposes. And if you do need to make notes and your phone's died, because you will have long hours, then it's there. The next thing is different sponges. I've got something that probably not a lot of people use, but it's just one of them cleaning sponges that you would use for your washing up. It's got two different textures, one on each side, and it's just really, really good. You can cut them up, so you get loads of multiple sponges in one. And they're really, really cheap and really, really affordable for people that are students or people that are just starting out and they can't afford loads of different sponges. This is a good option for you. The next is masking tape. It's just good for everything. If you need to stick photos on something just so you can see your mood boards, you've got masking tape. If you need a set of teeth laid out in order that you've made, you can put them all on masking tape and have them in order. They're just multi-purpose, just something handy, and it's light to carry around. It's just all in all really good. The next one is Morph Plastic. A lot of people haven't heard of this, but this is something that I really enjoy using. You just heat these little pieces of plastic up in hot water, like boiling water from a kettle, and they melt and you can shape them into any way you want. I've made them into teeth, nails, fangs, headsets, horns. Like, they're just so multi-purpose and useful. You can also colour them and paint on them as well if you didn't want to colour them whilst they're melting. But overall, they're really, really good. Even if you don't have them on you all the time, it's just good to have in your kit at home. Another is a hairband. I just have this black plain hairband. Every time I use it, I do wash it. It's not for me, it's for clients. It's something that I just use to get hair out of their face. If they need to put their hair up, you can just double it over and use it for that. Overall, it's just really, really good. So yeah, there you have it. That's everything that I have in my SFX kit. As I said, there are a few things that could be added in, or things I do have but I just don't particularly use, so I don't feel the need to put them in here if I don't use them. I'd rather show you things that I generally use all the time on set or at home or just on odd projects. Hope this helps and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for watching this GUNK Collective video, and I'll see you next time.